As the release of Fantastic Four First Steps approaches, this time I discuss the 2015 Fantastic Four movie, directed by Josh Trank, in another crossover with Kumar and Jordan's Comic Book Movie Oblivion podcast. I'm again presenting our discussion in two parts. In part one, we first look back at the first appearance of the as-yet unnamed Negative Zone in Fantastic Four 51, This Man, This Monster, from 1966. We also take a look at the first volume of Ultimate Fantastic Four by Brian Michael Bendis, Mark Millar, and Adam Kubert from 2004. Ultimate Fantastic Four was clearly the starting point for the script of this movie, although numerous changes were made in the finished product. We'll also discuss the first 45 minutes or so of the movie itself to conclude part one of our discussion. First, I'd like to thank our patrons for helping to keep the show going. You can pitch in by pledging at least $2 a month at patreon.com/deconcomics. This is Tim.
This is Kumar.
And this is Jordan.
And this is Deconstructing Comics and Comic Book Movie Oblivion. Welcome to Deconstructing Comics, crossing over once again this week with Comic Book Movie Oblivion. Welcome, Kumar and Jordan.
Thanks, Tim.
Hello.
And we're talking this time about the 2015 Fantastic Four movie directed by Josh Trank.
Yeah. I would like to start by repeating a joke I made when we talked about the third Hellboy movie, which is I would like to apologize to the Silver Surfer movie for the things I said about it last time after watching this movie.
Well, my take on the, I guess, I don't know, the way I watch movies, it's like often, even if something is kind of, what? I'll just kind of bleep past it and keep going and give it the benefit of the doubt. And so, there, of course, there are kind of goofy places here and like, why did this happen? But I thought it was the kind of thing that we could discuss is it a, I think it's fair to try to do a different take on the Fantastic Four, but sure. Do you go ahead and do that if nobody wants it?
Yeah. Well, it's a question. The question is, what is the core concept of the Fantastic Four? Really, what is the thing that makes it different from other Marvel books or superhero books of 1963 or up to the present? And I think most people would say, well, that's the family superhero book. Bickering family that loves each other book.
Yeah, especially since there started to be kids involved, Franklin and the subsequent ones.
Yeah. But even just the relationship with Sue and Johnny being siblings, and then the marriage between Sue and Reed. It's once you take that out of it, which I think this movie does with extreme prejudice, you don't have a Fantastic Four movie. You've got something else. You should give it a different title.
Yeah, they're all separate from each other for a big chunk of the movie.
Oh, yeah, and sometimes one or the other will just disappear for like 20 minutes. Like Ben is out of the movie for 20 minutes. Reed is out of the movie for like 20 minutes.
Well, Johnny doesn't even show up until 20 minutes in.
That's right. Exactly. So often it's the Fantastic Three. I was watching this with my wife who didn't really know anything about Fantastic Four, and she assumed that the movie was about Johnny, Reed, Victor, and Sue.
Why wouldn't you think that?
Yeah.
Ben was barely in it.
That's right. She's like, oh, this is the Fantastic Four.
Ben's not involved in the whole project. He just called in at the last minute, like because of we can talk about that some more. But
well, normally we start with the comic,
sure,
and we've already jumped right into talking about the film.
Yes, well, that's my fault. Also, we should mention. So we had we didn't have any letters, but I think. Tim, you got some angry Twitter comments. I don't know why you're still on Twitter, but you had some angry messages about your
actually that was
to the Galactus saga.
That was what caused me to quit posting on Twitter. I just said, if this is the kind of feedback I'm getting, forget it. Well, so I mean, maybe I could have written a better blurb for it in the post, but I said. like that we had that there was a controversial take on the comic, the Galactus saga in the comics, and somebody posted. I should have this in front of me. Hang on a second. It didn't occur to me this was going to come up.
It'll be like your last Twitter post, right?
Basically.
Your final, I'm done.
Yeah, so what I wrote was, the Galactus trilogy is an oft-praised, oft-adapted, highly influential story in Fantastic Four 48 through 50, 1966, and yet it could be seen as flawed. Tim, Kumar, and Jordan discuss, and the link. And what I got more feedback than I ever usually get, but it was all negative. So, people find it on YouTube for some reason more than they find the podcast. And so the first person wrote, "I don't even need to watch this to know how retarded of a take this is." And then somebody else writes, "Holy shit, what a take. Not a good one either." And somebody else wrote, "Flawed my ass. And this opinion is flawed." And I could, as far as I could tell, nobody had actually listened to it.
Nobody listened. Right. It's just that you said could be flawed.
Could be
you
flawed.
Didn't even say it was flawed.
Yeah, and then I actually retweeted my original post and wrote, "Have to wonder how many people disagreeing with my, quote, flawed take have actually listened to the show." And I did get one person who responded, "I don't know, but now I have to listen to it because I love Silver Surfer." That person, I don't know what he thought of the podcast, but apparently he did at least listen to it. So that's a plus.
We got one extra listen out of that controversy.
Yeah.
That's good.
Okay,
so now Tim's off Twitter.
Yeah.
I mean, the account is still there, but yeah, I've just kind of, the stuff I used to do there, I'm doing on Blue Sky. So
right.
We are too.
Okay, so I chose issue 51 for this episode, which is the one right after the Galactus saga. This is like peak. This is really peak, because then after this, it's like Black Panther's in the next issue.
Introduction. It's
unreal. This it's like period of explosive creativity.
Right between two like major remembered Fantastic Four stories.
I think this one is up there too. This is the one that like Alex Ross did a remake of this just 2 or 3 years ago, like a big 100-page graphic novel version of this one issue.
Really?
Yeah.
Version of this like 12-page comic.
Yeah. Well, it's more than it's a full issue. It's pretty.
No, it's more than 12.
This is quite a remembered issue as well. I think this monster.
Oh, it's great. Yeah. I wouldn't say I'm not going to go out there. I'm not going to go as far as Tim and say it could be flawed. I mean, I would. I think it's pretty good.
Yeah.
I don't want to get any hate mail.
Yeah.
Well, but that would require people to actually listen. So just don't put it on Twitter. Otherwise, then you're safe.
But it's an interesting issue. I only chose it because it's got the first appearance of the Negative Zone, which I think is called Earth Zero or something in this issue. Actually,
no, it's called in the movie. It's called Earth Zero. In this issue, I don't think it's called the Negative Zone yet. I think it's later.
They did have a different name for it. I read the
eventually it becomes the Negative Zone.
That's right.
Yeah.
But I think sure you picked it because it's the first appearance of the Negative Zone. But I think also it's a good issue.
Yeah.
Because it illustrates some of the things that you were saying about the Fantastic Four, that it's about interpersonal relationships among the family, and also about Ben Grimm struggling with his monstrous nature.
Yeah. And it's also typical of this era, is full of like weird science plot holes and things that don't make sense, but you just kind of
roll with it because you're already onto the next thing.
That's right. So basically in this issue, Ben is walking around in the rain. He's very depressed and sad. I think this is basically he thinks that Alicia has left him is more interested in the Silver Surfer.
That seems to be it.
Yeah. And he's actually like contemplating death. Like, I'm just going to die this way as a rock monster. And he finds himself drawn to this part of town, as he has been several times, but he doesn't know quite why. And then this random scientist, whose name we never learn,
Amazing.
invites him in, and we learn that this scientist has planned this. So he has built something.
We learn it because he has thought bubbles saying,
"That's right,
I've planned this."
Yeah. So he drugs.
Typical Stanley style.
He has to tell himself
the thing
that.
must not realize that
By the way,
have planned all this.
Yeah, in typical Stanley style, it opens with a caption which says, "Occasionally, a tale needs no introduction. This is such a tale. A rainy night, a strangely forlorn figure, and rare wonderment awaits us." So we did need an introduction as far as Stan was concerned, because he still wrote it.
Yeah.
Anyway, there actually aren't that many captions for these several pages. But anyway, so Ben is drugged by the scientist and knocked out, and the scientist wants to use a duplication apparatus, which makes him into the Thing and turns the Thing back into Ben.
This scientist will later lament that he's wasted his life and achieved nothing. But just in these first few pages, he's invented a duplication machine.
Yep.
A subliminal
influencer,
which can make you walk to somewhere he wants you to walk to.
That's not even the thing he cares about.
And he's also invented a drug that can incapacitate the Thing.
Yeah.
I'm fairly certain regular kind of drugs don't work on the Thing. So this guy is actually really talented.
Amazing. Really amazing. And seems oblivious to his own genius.
But it does work out because it's not really his talent that's in doubt. It's his sense of inferiority.
That's right. So he feels inferior to Reed. He thinks Reed is like this blowhard, arrogant guy, and he wants revenge on Reed. This is why I wanted to turn into the Thing, so we can infiltrate the Fantastic Four and basically get revenge, kill Reed, maybe.
He says he wants to destroy the Fantastic Four.
That's right.
But we find out that his reasons for wanting to do that are because he is deeply resentful of Reed Richards. He thinks Reed Richards has got all the breaks, all the resources, all the fame, and meanwhile he's been languishing in this seedy apartment in like a bad part of town.
Yeah.
And he doesn't have all those things, and Reed doesn't deserve them, and he does.
Yeah. And so then we learn. So the other thing is, now that he's knocked Ben out, he needs to learn his speech mannerism.
He says, "I better start practicing now how to speak like Ben Grimm." It's like, you probably should have started practicing earlier.
Yes, exactly. Because now we learn that it's a few days later before he comes back to the Baxter Building.
And how can he study because Ben is asleep, so he can't imitate?
I guess he's watching old TV. I don't know. Yeah, how's he doing it? But this is crazy
be charitable and say he needs to learn to speak with the Thing's body, rather than that he needs to imitate his speech patterns exactly. But that's me being very generous.
Yes, I must begin immediately to practice speaking in exactly the same manner as the real orange-skinned Thing.
Mm-hmm. Also, he notes that this is perfect for his plan because he has a slight skeletal resemblance to the Thing.
That's right.
Are there any human beings that have a skeletal resemblance to a rock monster? I guess if anyone does, this guy does. He does have quite a kind of heavy physiognomy, doesn't he?
He might have the same. Maybe the Thing still has bones inside, I guess. We don't know.
Secret.
We don't know. But the thing that happens is a few days later, before he shows up at the Baxter Building, so he shows up, he poses as the real Thing, and they're like, "Hey, welcome back. Where were you for all those days?" And then Ben shows up. So, huge question. Where was Ben during these 3 days? Why didn't he come back to base? Was he in that guy's apartment teaching him how to talk like him? Why did the guy leave him alive?
I think maybe, why did the guy leave him alive? That's a good question. I think maybe that Ben's just been missing for a few days and it's not been that much time that's passed since the transfer.
But it does say a few days later.
Oh, does it? Okay, then forget that.
Absolutely. It's a few days later.
Mm-hmm.
So Ben was just asleep for a few days.
Maybe the guy set him free from his apartment. He's been walking for 3 days, or he's been asleep for 3 days, maybe.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Just on to the next panel.
Exactly. It's one of the things that doesn't matter. Yeah. So basically, they kick out the human form of Ben. They don't believe he's a thing. They think he's a guy that just looks like Ben. Because they've got Rock Ben there. Like, how is it possible that somebody else could be Ben? Meanwhile,
this is crazy.
It is crazy because Reed is building a machine that will transform into other dimensions, and he can't believe that possibly Ben and this other guy have switched.
Well, maybe he thinks if I didn't do this, it's not possible.
Yeah. But this is great. I mean, a lot of this stuff just slides by. Like you say, Kumar, it doesn't matter that Ben was missing, like, asleep on a couch for 3 weeks. It doesn't matter that this self-doubting inventor is smarter than everybody else. And yet this really bugged me that Sue and Reed didn't even think to say, hey, what did I used to call you when we were kids? Or
right.
What was the name of the street we grew up on?
Yeah.
You don't even need to have a super science background to try and figure out when you've got two people and one of them might be the imposter.
Yeah, I mean that's the classic way of figuring out which is the real one and which is the imposter. I've seen that in a lot of different properties, but
it's so funny to me that they don't do anything like that, or Reed doesn't build a machine, or they just kick this guy who looks identical to their old friend.
Yeah.
Just kick him the hell out.
Yeah. So meanwhile, Reed has been...
and Ben's been acting weird. Sorry, the imposter's been acting weird too.
Yes,
that's
right.
That he's super strong.
They don't say, "Oh, that's why he's acting weird,"
until the end. Once they figured out, then they're like, "Oh, that's why he couldn't move that thing."
Oh, we're on page 20 now. I realize why it happened.
It's so funny.
Yeah. So meanwhile, Reed has been working on this machine in secret, which is this thing will take him another dimension. So he's able to travel faster than the speed of light, which he feels is necessary to fight people like Galactus, Silver Surfer, the Watcher, who can all do that. One detail I liked here was that he mentions, or Sue mentions, that you've had work crews in there for weeks working on this thing.
So he's not sitting there all by himself.
No, which was, I thought that I credited the Tim Story movie with that invention, that they had a whole crew in there. But no, it was actually at least mentioned that he's got a work crew building a new machine for a week or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
unlike this film that we're going to talk about, where they seem to do all their own welding.
Yes, in fact, yes, they do. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Need to bring in a drag racer to help. In fact, so Reed goes in this other dimension. It's Jack Kirby craziness.
We get a collage. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, we get the Kirby collage. We get some weird stuff here where he's attached by a cable, which when he tugs the cable, that means Ben is supposed to pull him back into our dimension. But while he's over there, he sees the Earth, and he says, ahead of me, it's the one thing I feared, the one thing there can be no defense against. The elements of subspace are being irresistibly drawn back towards Earth. But here in subspace, all matter is negative, all Earth is positive. Therefore, whatever strikes the atmosphere of Earth must instantly explode. So, why is this stuff coming to Earth? Was it going to crash into the Earth anyway? Is it just pure chance that he happened to appear in this negative zone while this is happening, or did he know this? Is this why he came in the first place? I don't understand why it's happening at all.
Well, and I didn't understand why there was an Earth in the negative zone, because I don't think that ever appeared again.
Yeah. Well, I think that seems to be the positive Earth. That seems to be our Earth that he can see for some reason. Because that's the positive Earth, and the negative matter is going to slam into it.
Elements of subspace are being irresistibly drawn back towards Earth. Yeah, not a negative Earth and positive Earth. It's just Earth. I mean, he's referring to this area as subspace.
Yes.
Right. We know it's the negative zone, but at this point, we don't know anything about it. It's just a strange characteristic of this dimension is that you go in there and then you're drawn back to the place where you came from.
In subspace, all matter is negative.
I was okay with it.
Okay.
It's just the crisis.
Yes.
Presumably, this kind of intangible matter is constantly being drawn towards the Earth, and it's only because Reed has built his machine that he's able to perceive it and be part of it. I was fine with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess the idea is that Earth is magnetic, because it's positive and this matter in subspace is negative.
Oh, that didn't even occur to me. I just assumed it was gravity.
But then there's nothing that can stop this from happening. It should have happened a billion years ago.
Yeah.
I just assume it's something that happens constantly. Like there's just always stuff's always being drawn.
Okay, then why isn't the Earth exploded as he says it would?
He says that it's the negative matter that explodes, not the Earth, right?
Yeah, the negative matter is going to hit the Earth, the positive Earth.
Yep. It hits the Earth's atmosphere, and then the negative matter explodes in the atmosphere. Right.
Yes.
It doesn't.
So why isn't it exploding all the time? You're saying this is happening all the time.
Yeah, it's happening all the time, but we just don't perceive it because we're not in the negative zone.
Oh.
Yeah, but if it's happening all the time, why was he afraid of it? And why is this an emergency?
He says whatever strikes the atmosphere of Earth must instantly explode.
He doesn't know anything about the characteristics of this dimension yet. Why are we spending so much mental energy on this thing that Stanley tossed off in 5 minutes?
Yeah, okay.
Oh, that long?
60 years ago.
5 whole minutes.
5 whole minutes.
Okay, so Reed tugs on the cable. He needs to go back to Earth. I don't know why.
Yeah, why is this an emergency?
Earth is going to blow up anyway. Based on what he's seen, the Earth is going to be destroyed, I think.
He's going to be destroyed.
Okay.
Because he's now in the negative zone, he's presumably charged with that negative energy. So he'll explode if he bumps into the atmosphere.
Okay, I'll buy that.
And that's unfortunately the fate of the imposter.
Right.
Yeah,
so
I'm just increasingly confused, but anyway.
Right. So the fake thing is a little bit slow pulling on the rope, even though
he's having a crisis of conscience.
That's right.
Now, over the last few panels, he started to see that Reed isn't exactly what he thought he was. He thought Reed was some kind of blowhard lightweight that had got all the breaks.
In fact, in his thought balloons, he's still thinking in the Thing's voice sometimes.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Which is weird.
He's a method actor.
Yeah.
He's just getting really into the Thing's character. And I think that could also, if you were being generous, you could say that's part of the reason why he has his change of heart, because he's starting to identify more strongly with the character that he's playing and the people he's surrounded by.
Yeah.
As he said, I think as he plummets down into the planet, he says, I finally found a friend.
Right.
He's known Richards for like half an hour. But I think it's like you were saying right back at the start, such as the energy of this comic, the idea that it's about binding people together as a family. Even the imposter, with his brief sojourn in the Thing's body, is affected by this kind of, how would you describe it, energy, this kind of characterization.
Yeah.
He hesitates to pull Reed back. I mean, he's having a struggle. He came to destroy the Fantastic Four, but now he sees Reed working to protect the Earth with no thought of reward, and in fact endangering his own health to do so. And he thinks, I've got it wrong, and he can't help but compare it to the person that he is, the guy that's been bitter and done nothing but work in solitude, creating incredible inventions to which he has put to no good use. And he eventually decides he's going to pull Reed back. And Sue, meanwhile, is going, Ben, why don't you pull him back?
Yeah.
But he's waited too long, and the tether snaps.
Yeah. So he's got to jump onto the snapped end of it, and he enters the negative zone. And then he decides he's going to save Reed by just tossing him into space. He
tosses him the way he came.
Yes,
it's a long shot, but it's better than nothing. Yeah, he comes in and they have a brief discussion, and the imposter thinks, I've just got to do this. He picks Reed up, hurls him back the way he came, then sits down, thinks to himself, I'm going to die now, but at least I found a friend before the end, and then he disappears.
Yes, he dies, and then the real Ben comes back to the Baxter building.
Well, interestingly, his destruction in subspace, or the negative zone, or whatever this is, leads to his Thing powers going back to Ben.
Yeah, don't know why that works, but doesn't matter.
Why would that Ben is going to see Alicia now that he's in human form, and he's just starting to knock, and then he realizes he's changed back to the Thing because the other guy died, and so that it doesn't necessarily follow that the Thing powers would revert to Ben, but that's comic book logic.
I would say it's negative zone logic, because I think this movie follows the same kind of logic in terms of anything can happen.
Oh boy, yeah, we'll talk about that.
Yeah, so we'll also briefly talk about Ultimate Fantastic Four.
Mm-hmm.
So for people who don't know, the Ultimate line was a line of comics that was started by Marvel in the late 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah, I think this was 2004.
This series was 2004. And interestingly, probably the first movie was coming into production at the time, so that might be why they launched this series. But ostensibly, the Ultimate line was supposed to be a way for new readers to come on to comics like Spider-Man, X-Men, Avengers, Fantastic Four, without all the baggage of that soap opera continuity of 50 years.
Right.
Yep.
I really wonder if it brought any new people into shops. It might have brought maybe some people who were reading Batman might have come over to Spider-Man. I suspect it was mostly Spider-Man readers just buying another Spider-Man comic and Fantastic Four readers buying another Fantastic Four comic. I have trouble believing they got any new readers. But anyway, a thing that happened with most of this line was that everybody was turned into teenagers. Brian Michael Bendis was writing these, and he was famously a guy that would eavesdrop on teenagers in the mall or at McDonald's and write down what they were saying, so he would know how to write like kids. Seems very creepy to me, but he was a hot writer there for 10, 15 years, I guess. This comic is very 2005, very Marvel of this era. It's like I mentioned, everyone's teenagers. There's really obvious, like, you can see writer needs to put in conflict here. So, like, Reed's dad is like a bully. There's bullies at school. It's always just really artificial conflict. It's set in modern times.
Yeah, it's set in modern times, so it's not set in the 60s or whatever. Yeah. It's very... I mentioned this in our last episode, but it's very much... it's very serious.
Yes.
It's trying very hard to be mature.
Yes.
So there will be things like domestic violence, like Reed's father abusing him.
Well, I felt like the tone of the comic wasn't that different from the tone of the movie. This was clearly the starting point for the movie script.
100%.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. The movie has a lot of...
I mean, it doesn't get
it takes a lot of inspiration from this comic.
This comic doesn't get quite as body horror as the movie does, but it's not there's not a lot of humor in it. I think the movie actually had more humor than this comic did.
There tried to be.
A couple of times that it was kind of funny. But
so in this version,
there will also be themes of like mistrust of authority. Yeah, so this is written during the War on Terror, and George Bush is the president of the US at the time. So that there'll often be a few swipes at Bush in the comic,
and in the movie, actually,
seeing institutions as antagonistic. To the heroes, the superheroes. Yeah. So very much like that, there'll be mistrust. The military runs the Baxter Building. It's not a it's not an independent scientific foundation. Instead, it's under the heel of the military. The military funds it, and they're expecting to weaponize kind of the inventions that come out of the Mole Man character gives us a speech about how the reason they're there is to serve their country. Yeah. And not in a happy Teen Titans joining the Peace Corps and going off to Guatemala or whatever happened way back when we did Teen Titans. But you must produce weapons for the military-industrial complex kind of messaging. So it's all very kind of lamely gritty and grown up.
Lamely gritty, okay.
Yeah.
I've never heard those two words together before.
In this version, Reed is the bullied nerd at school, and his pal is the big jock, Ben. I'm not sure why they're friends. And at home, Reed keeps building stuff using bits and pieces that he can find around. That makes his dad very angry, and he smashes his stuff. Reed tries to build a teleporter in his garage with Ben, and it causes a big explosion, and Dad goes crazy. And then there's a science fair at school, and he's built a larger version or a better version of this teleporter, and they demonstrate it. And there's a scout at the school for this big tech company, and he hires.
Well, he's a military officer.
Yes. Yeah. Well,
so he is a scout, as you say, but he's a scout for the Baxter Building.
Right.
And I think he holds an officer's rank or something, because I think later we see him in military uniform.
Right. Okay. So they go over to the Baxter Building. We don't need to go too much into this. They try to tie all the lines together, like Mole Man is actually a guy that works, as you mentioned, works for the Baxter Company, and his name's like Malevskin or something. They try to give him a realistic name, like they've tried to explain, this business.
And he looks like a mole, and he hasn't undergone. Well, actually, the original Mole Man just kind of looked like a mole too, didn't he?
Yeah, and the thing is,
fact,
this
that was why he was so grumpy, because he looked like a mole.
This guy, I mean, in this ultimate version, he ends up living underground with all these creatures. You don't need to give him the name like Malevkin or whatever. He's mole-like. We can call him Mole Man without that. It was slightly annoying to me. Victor Von Doom is called Victor Van Dam, which to me was more distracting, much more distracting than calling him Van Doom.
Yeah, I wondered if it was meant to be. When somebody called him that, I thought it was a joke, like they were comparing him to Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Yeah, no, it's just bad writing, bad decision.
Really, his name.
And so they finally, after a few years at this company, they build this large version of their teleporter, and they switch it on out in the desert. But instead of teleporting what's inside, it affects what's outside. And so our heroes are changed, as we know, by this teleportation experiment into what they call the end zone. I don't think they call it the negative zone. They just call it the end zone.
Just N dash zone.
They specifically want to use it to teleport.
That's right. Yes,
and that's what that's what Reed has been trying to do all along. The purpose of the end zone is that it's an adjacent dimension that you can use to hasten travel.
Yes.
And it's this act of being teleported by the device that changes them and gives them their abilities.
Yeah, I guess they get carried through the end zone to various locations on Earth.
Yes. So it's functioning as designed, teleporting them around, but they've also been horribly changed, part of the process. That's and Victor has vanished. Incidentally, in the preceding pages, Victor and Reed start working together.
Yes.
So they're initially antagonistic, but they start working together, and it's much is canon. We know that Reed and Doom were colleagues. That's been carried over in all of the adaptations, hasn't it, so far?
Mm-hmm. Oh, and we did mention that the this company is run by Sue Storm's father.
Right, Franklin Storm.
It's like it's a think tank. It's a government. It's not a company. It's pretty explicitly a government-run institute. That's
right. Well, either way, anyway, this is where Mr. Storm is and where Sue Storm is. So that's how he meets her.
Yes.
In this version.
Yes, and Ben has shown up at the test because Reed has invited him to come.
Yes.
Yeah, it's very similar to the movie there, and
identical.
Well, in fact, I think it's even a little bit similar to the 2005 movie in that Sue is working at the company. She was working for Victor's company in that 2005 movie.
She was.
And there's some other little differences or similarities, like Johnny wakes up in the hospital in a way that's kind of looks a bit similar to what they did in 2005.
Yes.
And, later on, after these the first run of issues, Dr. Doom comes back, but he's actually fused with the metal.
Oh, yeah. We mentioned that in the preceding... Right. I'm pretty sure we did discuss it in preceding weeks, that those films did take some elements from...
Right, okay.
But this film we're discussing today takes the whole plot, or in swaths of plot beats from this comic.
Yeah, and from what we heard about the original intention for the movie, it was even more like this, but some things from the comic got tossed out. We'll get to that later.
We will get to that.
I guess the other thing about here is that somebody, I think Mr. Storm, Sue's dad, notes that they've come back with the powers of earth, air, fire, and water. In the sense that, Reed is now, fluid, liquid, stretchy. I don't know that anybody's observed that before, but they don't really do anything with it, except that they start bringing in, Hindu and Greek myths.
Oh, that was the Mole Man.
Yeah, so maybe they were actually going for some sort of Greek elements thing.
I think it's just fan service. I think it's just an example of dialogue. It's just sort of tossed off in dialogue where And I think
if it's meant to actually be the case, I think that's better than personality powers, in my opinion. Rather than having Johnny be on fire because he's a hothead.
Yeah.
Or Sue become invisible because she always feels unseen.
Yeah. It's never explained.
No.
I think this is just I think people, I'm not sure where it was first observed that the Fantastic Four's powers correspond kind of like to 4 elements: earth, fire, wind, water.
Yeah, I'd never seen it before this.
I know it does pop up in Neil Gaiman's 17th century
okay, 1602, yeah.
1602.
Yeah.
It pops up. I saw it in that. And here, it's in here as well.
Oh, interesting. So Bendis thought he was being smart. Or Millar. Mark Millar was the other writer on this.
Yes, he was, yeah.
So one of those two guys thought they were onto something, maybe?
But it doesn't go anywhere.
No.
And in fact, it's later revealed that this wasn't in the issues that we read, but it's later revealed that they've taken on the characteristics when they pass through. There's a line early on in the comic where Reed says to Ben when they're still kids that he's telling him about planes. He's telling him about the adjacent dimensions. And he says, we are genetically custom made for this plane, which is not a true statement.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I noted that too.
But the purpose of that line was to set up the reveal, which is that they've taken on the characteristics of other planes. So other planes require a different genetic custom-made status.
Got it.
And as they've passed through the zones of probability in the end zone, they've acquired the characteristics of organisms that live in other dimensions.
Okay.
Incidentally, Victor's vanished.
Yeah.
He doesn't come back in the comics that we read, but he does eventually come back as a kind of metal monster.
Yeah.
And it was him that made the changes to the calculations that led to the accident.
Oh, right. That's right. Yes. He did it without permission. He changed the... Yeah. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, the experiment would have gone properly, I guess we're saying.
Didn't something like that happen in the first Fantastic Four movie we watched with Colossus? Wasn't there a disagreement about the calculations that led to the accident?
Yes.
History repeats itself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Coming up, we get into discussing the film itself. This podcast is part of the Deconstructing Comics Network, where we're grateful to our supporters on Patreon. Patrons get exclusive extra content. Pledge $2 a month or more and get Batman 66 podcast Bat Bits and occasional trivia videos. Most recently, we presented trivia about 90125, the 1983 album from Yes. In the next few Bat Bits episodes, we'll discuss early drafts of the script for The Bookworm Turns. At $4 a month, you also get our new monthly show Silver Age Batman, where I'm moving through the book Batman in the 50s, issue by issue, with a rotating second chair of Paul, Emmett, Patrick, or Kumar. Follow our Patreon for free and you can hear the first 2 episodes of both Bat Bits and Silver Age Batman. Check it out at patreon.com/deconcomics, and thanks for your support.
Do you like comics? The 1960s? How about middle-aged gay couples gossiping about their neighbors? Then you'll love Checkered Past,
a loving examination of DC's Go-Go Check branded comic magazines published from February 1966 to August 1967.
I'm Dr. Bob.
And I'm Dr. Husband.
And each week we'll be your hosts on a trippy tour through mid-century 4-color madness. Checkered Past, available wherever fine podcasts are downloaded for free.
So I don't know if there's much more to say about this.
Well, I think we're going to be coming back to it when we talk about the script changes.
Yeah, agreed.
Yes,
yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
Oh, I will say there's you're talking about body horror. When Reed comes back in his stretchy form, he says, "Help me," much like the Fly.
Yeah.
That's immediately what I thought of was the Fly, and even John Carpenter's The Thing.
Well, and one of the YouTube videos I watched said that the Fly was a big inspiration for the film.
Oh,
yes, I read a quote from, I can't remember where I read it.
You know what? That is
the Fly and Scanners also.
When I was watching it last night, and we see Victor Von Doom's shed that he's living in, my wife or Ashton, I can't remember who it was, said, "Oh, he's living in a dump like the Fly." How bizarre! So I guess he was effective in ripping some bits off.
Yeah, Josh Trank said in an interview that he was inspired by the Fly and Scanners. The Scanners' influence is pretty clear when Doom is wandering around popping heads.
Yeah.
Yes. Right.
I haven't even seen Scanners, and I caught that. Yes, that's the most famous thing about it.
Okay, so shall we talk about this movie?
Yep.
So 2015, directed by Josh Trank, who had directed Chronicle in 2012. That was a great movie. Really surprising, fresh, different superhero take. However, Tim Story's career survived his 2 Fantastic Four movies. And Josh Trank seems to have only made 1 movie since this came out.
Yeah, Capone.
Yep. But this plays out very much like the Ultimate Fantastic Four version. We start in school where Reed is so smart that it annoys his teachers for some reason. You would think he would be acing his tests and his teachers would be happy.
Yeah, I thought that was odd too. Like, why is this teacher being so catty towards him? His teacher, played by Dan Castellaneta, Homer Simpson himself.
Homer, yeah.
What an odd choice.
Yeah.
He's fine. Yeah, I guess...
he's fine, but it's like a thankless. Why are you angry at this kid?
Why is my student so clever? This isn't why I got into teaching.
Exactly. So
to be fair to Dan, Reed didn't do what was required in the assignment. He was supposed to talk about a profession.
Yeah, like a realistic career, and it's just
to teleport shit.
The teacher doesn't seem to think that Reed is really capable of what he's trying to do, and he's just screwing around or pretending or something.
Well, you know what? There's kind of like the writing, much like in Ultimate, it's very transparent what the writers are trying to do. Because two seconds before this, you listen to a student give a speech about how he wants to be an athlete that makes $20 million a year, and the teacher doesn't get angry at this kid for his dreams. He gets angry at Reed for wanting to teleport things. That's supposed to be unrealistic.
Just tick off the boxes.
But being a high-paid quarterback is easy.
Yeah. Reed is put upon. He's having a shit childhood.
Yeah. So meanwhile, Ben, who is not friends with Reed, but they go to the same school, they're in the same class, he's at home. He lives in a junkyard, a salvage yard. And his brother's a bully to him. The only time we hear the line, "It's clobbering time," is when a child is beaten in this movie.
Well, I'd forgotten, but it does come up again at the climax of the film.
Isn't he like trying to come up with a line, but he doesn't?
Yes. No, he does, but he does eventually say
he does.
That's in the comic. Yeah, he's trying to come up with a line.
Yeah.
Oh.
But in the film, I don't think...
mixed up they become in my head.
He does it in both. When they're just about to go to Planet Zero, he says, "It's time to... I'll work on that."
Right. But then when I didn't really catch that. But just as he's punching Victor, he says it's clobbering time.
But to return to Kumar's point, should this be the origin of clobbering time? An abusive elder brother?
No.
It's so gross. So gross. Everything in this movie is so gross and edgy and like...
dark.
Yes, dark and... Yeah.
Things aren't better because they're dark.
Exactly.
In fact, the whole film is badly lit. Or should I say poorly lit.
Yeah.
Well, I guess also Trank had the idea that he was going to do for the Fantastic Four what Christopher Nolan did for Batman.
Yeah.
But the Fantastic Four is not Batman.
Yeah, I mean, Batman had a plenty of history of being dark in the comics by the time the first Nolan movie came out. But Fantastic Four, I mean, other than maybe Ultimate Fantastic Four had established darkness, but the regular MCU, or not MCU, but 616 Fantastic Four, I don't think has ever been dark.
I would say even the Ultimate Fantastic Four is brightly colored.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it is brightly colored. Sure.
Yeah.
I mean...
and Adam Kubert's drawings are nice, but anyway. So meanwhile, at this junkyard, Reed is there stealing parts. And this is how him and Ben become friends. And he's building the teleporter prototype in his garage, much like he was in Ultimate Fantastic Four. There's a big explosion which wipes out the lights on the street. Dad is really mean to the kid. He's angry. It's a stepdad, actually. It's explicit in this version.
Yeah, it's interesting that here he's the stepdad. And that doesn't really go anywhere.
Well,
and in fact, I don't think we see the dad being particularly mean. Isn't he just watching the football and...
Yeah, but he knows that Reed's done something wrong because... He says, "Reed, what did you do?" Like, he knows that if something goes wrong, it's usually Reed that's blowing something up.
But Reed...
But before they can actually meet face to face, the scene ends.
That's it, yeah. Well, I think, Kumar, here we're being informed by the comic that the father figure is abusive.
Yes.
But in the film, he just seems to be disinterested.
I will take a $5 bet that they shot a scene where the dad came in and slapped him.
Yes, I would not take that bet because I think you're right, and it got cut.
About the stepfather bit, so one of the videos I watched about this movie was from the New Rockstars channel, and they suggested that there was a sequel intended for this movie at one point, and they might have been thinking that in the comics, Reed's real dad is Nathaniel Richards, who left to travel through time, and maybe they were going to bring him in the future. Perhaps.
Okay.
That's not impossible. My counter argument would be that they wanted to make an abusive parent more cliched and have it be the stepfather.
Right. Okay, so cut to 7 years later. Now we have the science fair scene, just like in the comic.
Like in the comic.
Yeah. We have our main characters now. So now Reed is played by Miles Teller, who had just come off of Whiplash in 2014.
Yep.
We've got Jamie Bell as Ben, who he's previously on Snowpiercer.
That's right, way back. The very second movie we ever did.
Yep. And they demonstrate this teleportation device.
Incidentally, the machine looks like the one in the comic too. It's vaguely triangular.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, I had a few things I wanted to say about the kids part.
Sure.
So I think my favorite part of the movie was when Ben says, "You're insane," and Reed says, "Thanks."
Did it work? Where'd the rocks come from? From the same place the car went to. Where is that? I don't know yet. Reed? What? You're insane. Thanks.
Also, did you notice it's supposed to be 2007, but they're using like a 90s computer? I suppose he's using old computers might be the justification for it, but
And Nintendo 64s.
Right.
He's got a big
you can
rack
see
of Nintendo 64s.
The controller there.
I guess because
but he's salvaging parts. So
did anyone own a Nintendo 64 in 2007?
But it's salvaged parts, right? They could be 10 years old. Yeah.
I think that's the point. I think it's meant to be old tech because he needs to pick it up from junkyards and things.
Yeah, and so that's why he would have a 90s computer. Sure. One of the videos was making, or maybe more than one of the videos was making fun of that. But yeah, I think that's the idea.
I don't think his stepdad spends money on his gear.
No.
I don't think his parents would spend money on nice equipment, new computers, things like that.
Now, did you think that the kids part of the movie was necessary? Could we have done without that?
Yeah. Because it doesn't make sense. And the science fair doesn't make sense either because he teleports a thing and Dan Castellaneta accuses him of doing a magic trick and disqualifies him.
And he still has the same teacher 7 years later. That's also kind of weird. Apparently, it's a town of like 200 people where the same 5 teachers teach all the grades.
That's hilarious.
Yes,
That's funny, actually. Well, maybe he's just judging the science fair.
That could be.
Yes, he could just be the judge. Yeah.
But you're right. But I have sympathy for Dan Castellaneta here because you could believe that these kids have invented teleportation, or you could assume that they destroyed the backboard to the basketball ring to distract you from a basic sleight of hand where they pretended to get rid of it and then brought it.
Yes, of course.
I'm sympathetic. And then instead of a scout, it's Professor Storm and Sue themselves that have shown up to this science fair. Why are they here?
At a high school. Well, not only why are they here, they seem to know a lot about him because when they did that experiment as kids in the garage, when they did the teleportation, some rocks came back, some orangey rocks came back.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And when Sue Storm shows up at the fair, she pulls out a little test tube with a sample of the same rocks. She's like, we got the same thing you did. How did she know what he got in his garage? Has he been publishing in scientific journals?
Exactly. Well, the plane that they brought back from Planet Zero did have the same dust on it.
Little toy
It's possible
Cessna.
that Sue saw that.
Oh.
But it still raises the question: why are they here? How do they know teleportation is going on?
Yeah, how do they know that there's going to be any prospects worth scouting at a high school science fair?
And this isn't just a random drone going around attending science fairs just in case. This is the head of the
Baxter Foundation
and the head of the project to explore the.
I've thought this
end
too.
Zone.
Does he have time to do this? I really wondered about that.
Does he go around to every science fair?
Well, they'd have to cast a scout for the movie too. It's easier just to go with the cast you've got.
Yes. Can we talk about Reggie Cathy for a minute, who plays Franklin Storm, because he was also in The Mask and Tank Girl.
Yes, he was.
So he is an all-star this week.
We have to play a tone here.
Also, we have to play Fascinating, because he was in an episode of TNG.
Was he really? Which one?
Yeah, Aquiel, season 7.
Oh, that's not a great episode. That's one of the ones where Geordie's lusting after holographic women.
That's right, exactly. But that's a new feature on the show, Tim, is we now say fascinating when somebody was on Star Trek.
Because we never stopped talking about Star Trek.
Okay, I also want to point out that he was in The Wire. He had a long run in The Wire, and he was in House of Cards.
Yes, he was. Yeah, great actor.
Kate Mara was also in House of Cards, and Michael B. Jordan was also on The Wire. So it's possible these people met each other. I also want to say that despite everything about this movie, one good thing that came out of it was Jamie Bell and Kate Mara got married in 2017.
Oh, did they really?
Yeah.
That's nice. How did I miss that? I did so much reading for this movie.
But immediately I have a problem with this and the Ultimate version, which is that all the characters, the 4, are the same age. And it's missing a dynamic of some characters being older and some being younger, where Johnny was like the young teenager and Reed had the gray hair. He was like the mature dad. Reed was kind of an unusual Marvel character, as we mentioned a few weeks back, being the age he was. And here it just seems like pandering to teenagers, Let's cast a young...
Yeah, everybody's 17. They're all in the same class together.
Yeah.
I just want to raise a brief point about the name that they've given for their science project, which is the Cymatic Matter Shuttle.
Okay.
Now, Cymatic is not a good alternative to quantum or tachyon, as we discussed last time.
They used quantum in this movie, too. It drove me crazy.
Cymatics is specifically, I think you call it the study of the patterns that sound makes in a medium that can be disturbed by sound.
Right.
So, it's where you put some sand on a drum and then tap the drum and then the patterns that appear in the sand. That's cymatics.
Right.
That has nothing to do with transporting anything.
Yeah.
I think there's a tentative attempt to relate it to sound waves.
Yeah, because that shatters the backboard.
To some sort of just like a sonic device that's contributing to the teleporting. But the word cymatics is silly. It'd be like calling it the graphical matter shuttle or something like that.
Yeah.
That just pissed me off.
Yeah. Well, quantum in this in the comics
pisses you off, Kumar.
Yeah. In the comic too, when they used quantum, it's very much like Ultimate Spider-Man. They used the genetically engineered spider, which carried over into the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movie. And it wasn't a radioactive spider; it was genetically engineered. But spiders don't have anything like a nervous system like humans do. You would not genetically engineer them for any reason. There's no research purpose for that. And yet they just use the word genetic engineering, much like they use the word quantum, as if they know as if it's an all-purpose...
Well, we don't even have to go back to Spider-Man. This comic that we just read used the word genetically custom-made to describe suitability to living in a dimension.
Yeah. You don't know what genetics are.
No, you don't, Mark Miller.
No. So just let me have a few more cast notes. Reggie Cathy was also in the Luke Cage TV series,
Yes, he was. One of his last roles, I think.
And Kate Mara was in Iron Man 2, and she's a voice on the Invincible TV series.
And while we're doing this, Toby Kebbell, who plays Victor Von Doom, this is his second appearance on the podcast, Kumar. He was a character in Bloodshot.
Oh, that's right.
A character called Martin Axe.
Okay, right.
And there is an unnamed DC military official who presumably appears towards the end of the film, played by an actor called Marco St. John. This is actually his third appearance on the podcast, Kumar.
Whoa.
He was in Dylan Dog.
Okay.
Where he played the aged vampire Borelli that Dylan Dog goes
okay.
And he was also an uncredited mugger's arm in Alley on the original Superman.
I remember that mugger's arm. Okay. Crazy. All right, we'll have to note him down for the show notes.
Tim, thank you. You're being very patient.
Talking about cast, we should also mention Tim Blake Nelson.
Yeah.
Yes.
Who was Samuel Stearns in Incredible Hulk and Captain America Brave New World.
That's
and
right.
I don't want to call him leader because I didn't pick up that he was the leader in those movies.
Right. Right.
And then later on, everybody's calling him the leader. Like, what? The leader was in this movie? What?
Yeah. I saw that. He's also in the Watchmen TV series, which we shall not mention another word about.
And so he's playing Dr. Allen, who I guess was originally going to be Harvey Elder, the Mole Man.
Yes.
Oh.
He's called Harvey. Still, he's called Harvey Allen.
So that's another part of the comic that was cut.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there's a weird scene. Well, much later. Just remind me when we get to him again. But basically, Reed is recruited by Mr. Franklin.
Yeah,
Franklin Storm.
Franklin Storm from the Baxter Foundation.
Yes. And
why doesn't Ben get a scholarship? Ben was involved in this too. Is he just an assistant? He doesn't.
Yeah, he is just an assistant.
Okay.
I thought he was going to get in. I thought that's what they were leading to.
I was expecting it, and then you're just dropping Reed off. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a Fantastic Four movie, isn't it?
Yeah.
No, he has to vanish from the film for 40 minutes now.
Yes, that's right. So meanwhile, once Mr. Storm brings the kids into the foundation or this complex, the Baxter building, he's confronted by the board of directors. Tim Blake Nelson, I think his name is Harvey. His first name's Harvey.
Yeah, Harvey
Allen. So
Allen.
he doesn't like that he's going around recruiting kids, and he especially doesn't like that Victor Von Doom is on the team. He says Victor should be in jail.
What I wanted in this movie more than the part with the kids was the backstory of this project before Reed was recruited. There were all these little hints dropped, and when Johnny comes in, he sees Victor and calls him Adolf, and that's a whole other movie they should make.
Yeah, what should he be in jail for? It's not made explicit.
Yeah, they don't say. They just say that he burned the servers when he left or something, and he'd been working on it for 10 years though.
But I mean, that sounds more interesting than the kid stuff.
Yeah, so Doom must be a little older than the others if he already worked on the project for 10 years.
Oh yeah, that's right.
However, he just looks the same age and acts the same age.
So, but he's left the project, so Storm has to go over there to re-recruit him, and he's living in this dive, an absolute hole. And I was like, okay, so I guess this version is not the King of Latveria or royalty in any way.
No, he's just a creepy weirdo.
Yeah.
He just has a completely. I'm not sure how to describe this scene. So someone observed that it was like Seth Brundle in The Fly.
But actually, that was a loft. That was a nice loft in Montreal. This is a dump.
He looks like he's living in a trailer.
Yeah.
And he's doing stereotypical genius stuff.
Yeah.
Like this scene lays it on pretty thick, but he has like 5 monitors on, each showing a different thing.
Yeah.
There's classical music playing, because of course there is.
Yeah.
And everything in the trailer is operated by like little servo mechanisms. So
when Dr. Storm tries to open the Venetian blinds, he like remotely closes them again somehow.
Yeah. 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 So
on the Latveria bit, we have more to talk about there later when we're talking about the script changes.
Yep. I didn't read the original script, Tim, but I got a pretty detailed synopsis of it.
Okay. Yeah, I picked up a lot of pieces
points
from the videos I watched. But
right. Yeah, I'm looking forward to talking about it.
They bring this genius Victor back onto the project. He's very arrogant. And they basically and then Mr. Storm, Franklin Storm, Mr. Storm goes Reggie Cathy goes and recruits his son, Johnny, played by
Michael B.
Jordan, who is, I would say, one of the great actors of our time. Has nothing in this movie, absolutely nothing.
He's barely in it.
and he's just
He has no
bland.
arc.
How can you possibly make a movie with Michael B. Jordan being like uncharismatic? It seems impossible, and he's done it.
Well, it's what's happened to the script. It's the script that's been probably not a great script to start with.
Yeah.
But it's certainly not helped by the butchering it's experienced over the life of the filmmaking process, as Tim and I will get into a bit later on.
Right.
But to discuss his character, like, I know almost nothing about his character.
He's a drag racer.
We're introduced to him drag racing, so I guess he's meant to be one of those, like, 5 easy pieces kind of character where he's off doing a blue-collar job when he's actually a brilliant scientist. But we never really see him doing any brilliant science. He mostly just, I think he welds a bit at one point. He doesn't contribute
when
to
he
the
comes
project.
in, Reed asks him, have you welded before? He says, of course. And so then we see him welding.
Yep. Now we
So
get
this doesn't go, the film can't decide what his story is. And later on in the film, he enthusiastically joins the military.
Yep.
And starts flying around shooting down predator drones.
Yep.
How did we get from drag racing to that? I don't know.
Yep.
And
but
of course, most damning of all, he's barely in it.
His motivation, he crashes his car in that first scene. His motivation is to get his car back. That's why he's rejoined the project.
That was like a shit car.
Yeah, because his dad said the car was put together with his money, so he's going to keep the car from Johnny, and Johnny has to work to get it back.
That's his motivation.
Yeah, his motivation is to get his car back.
If it's not totaled from that crash, we don't know.
Yeah. So now we get a montage of them building the teleporter, the big full-size one. The executives come in, the board of directors come in to watch the test of the shooting a monkey into another dimension. This is a scene where Tim Blake Nelson gives a odd look to Victor Von Doom, as if they're plotting something together, but it's not. It doesn't go anywhere, right? There's no.
Well, that might be something that was lost in the script changes.
Sure.
Yeah.
The reshoots.
Yeah. Weird moment for sure.
Here we get some clashing explanations for what the purpose of this teleporter is.
Right.
It's not. First of all, it's not a teleporter. The project that they're working on is not teleportation. It's about opening a portal to this other dimension.
Yes.
And we're told several times by Reggie Cathy that it's because the Earth is dying and the Earth needs the resources of this new planet in order to survive. We're explicitly told that in as many words.
Right.
But we're never told anything about what this crisis facing the Earth is.
Well, I assumed that it was just like environmental problems that exist in the real world.
Generic climate change is what I thought it was. Yeah.
Yeah, in which they're laying it on a little thick then.
Well, one of the videos
climate change is
also
an extremely serious problem, but it's not usually mentioned as an immediate apocalypse the way it's being played in this movie.
Right.
And in fact, the explanation changes too.
Yep.
Because in this scene, when they're sending the chimp through, Reggie Cathy starts talking about how it's going to open up new vistas of scientific discovery. He says that we can learn so much about our origins. This looks like a planet that's at a primordial stage of development. We can understand the origin of the human species by exploring this place. So many avenues of research and understanding are going to open. This is not the only time shit like this happens in this movie. Dialogue and scenes will directly contradict one another. And I've got to assume that the climate change crisis, if it is indeed the climate change crisis, I'm assuming that this was maybe added in later, would be my thinking.
Possibly.
In one of the script revisions.
Well, you'd have
to give us stakes.
You have to check the scene. Like, if Kate Mara is wearing a wig, then you know it's a reshoot.
Yes, but she's not in every scene.
If you can't see her scalp in her...
Oh my God, that wig is so jarring. Hair. Oh my God. That is terrible, that wig. Just terrible. That's the best they could do?
Yeah, it's like the Zack Snyder Superman mustache.
Yeah, and I should say for the listeners that by the time they did the reshoots, Kate Mara had her hair cut and color changed for a different project she was in.
Yes.
So she had to wear this blonde wig.
I guess they did their best, but you can absolutely tell when it's blindingly obvious when it's a reshoot because she's wearing a very obvious wig.
Yeah.
And certainly we've had some sort of like a montage of them building the thing, as you mentioned, with an interesting kind of some music playing over it. The music's not too bad in this film.
Actually, it was a famous composer, at least
Philip Glass.
Philip Glass. Oh my God!
You can tell it's Philip Glass because it's very repetitive. It's going.
I have a question. Do you think how good or bad of a job do you think this movie did at selling the idea that Reed is a genius?
Oh, we've had a couple of scenes, right? As a kid, his parents dismissed him. His teachers dismissed him.
I mean, we know what his goals are, what he's trying to do. He did manage to teleport that toy car.
Yeah. He seems to be a genius. He can make teleportation machine in his garage. I think it did okay up to the high school science fair.
What do you reckon, Tim?
Yeah, well, I one of the videos had brought up this point. Yeah, I think as a kid he looks like a genius. As an adult, I don't get the sense that he's any smarter than anybody else in the room.
I agree. Yeah. In fact, they need to bring in Victor Von Doom to sort some of this stuff out, right?
And
because
plus,
he originated the project.
Sue kind of shakes our confidence in him, talking about how careless he was with the experiments that he'd done previously.
Right.
Amazing.
Oh, thanks.
Amazing you didn't black out the entire Western Hemisphere. You basically ripped a hole in the fabric of space-time with unspec'd components and no supervision.
Yeah, that was an accident.
And if by accident you upped the power, you would have created a runaway reaction that opened a black hole and swallowed the entire planet.
Well, I'm glad that didn't happen.
So
he's a bit more of a mad scientist than just a genius, I guess is what they're trying to present it as.
Well, here everyone's a genius.
Yes.
I think that's kind of I don't know if you call it, that's what the film is going for. So Johnny Storm is a genius, Sue is a genius, Reed is a genius, Von Doom is a genius. Because they're all geniuses, nobody is. So nobody really does anything clever in this movie, including Sue, who gets a whole bit where she has to use her pattern spotting genius to track down Reed. And instead of doing anything clever, she just notices that he uses a web handle Captain Nemo, and she remembers a conversation that they had earlier in the film where he admires Captain Nemo. And it's like, no, that's not smart to remembering things that you experience.
Well, I think
I'm sorry.
It's a problem of telling rather than showing.
100%.
Yeah.
They are geniuses. We just take our word for it. They're all geniuses. We don't have to show you them being geniuses.
Yeah. So once the test with the monkey is successful,
a CG
CG
ape, we should say.
Very obviously CG primate.
Well, I couldn't get a real monkey? You need all sorts of permissions, I suppose.
It was interesting in the comic book they used an apple for that experiment rather than a primate.
Yeah, or just a dog.
Yeah, but
why not a monkey?
A monkey,
CG monkey. Yeah, well, I understand why you would use a monkey, but I'm thinking from the filmmaker's perspective.
But CG costs $1 million.
Apes and monkeys are different. Chimpanzees are not monkeys.
That's true. You're right, of course, Tim.
What did you say, Kumar?
I said CG costs $1 million per minute. I'm sure a monkey would be cheaper.
Probably. You just go to rent an ape. I'm sure it's just down the street in Hollywood there.
After that experiment, Tim Blake Nelson comes in and he wants to take over the project and hand it to NASA. And the kids are like, no, we want to be the ones that go to the other side.
We're the ones who are supposed to become the superheroes, so we got to do this.
That's right. So they get
This is wild. I mean, they've been talking about wanting to go through themselves.
Yeah.
But it's bizarre. Again, if you're the designer, you don't do your own welding and you don't go on your own dangerous experimental missions.
In fact, they say that in the movie. They talk about Neil Armstrong, and they say people only talk about Neil Armstrong. They don't talk about the people that designed the rocket.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so they're just like, well, we're going to do it.
Well, Doom says it specifically.
It does fit with the original FF #1 where they snuck onto the base and got in the spaceship. And
yeah, of course it does.
Actually.
Yeah.
You know, it does. But my problem with this is that it's to do with Doom. Doom is the one that eggs them on to going into the other dimension.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this film cannot decide what Doom's character is.
All 4 of these movies cannot decide what Doom's motivation is.
That's right.
That's been consistent.
Well, we'll come back to that when he's reintroduced after leaving the film for about 50 minutes.
Yeah.
But here in this scene, Doom is like swigging whiskey out of a hip flask and like talking about Neil Armstrong and egging them on. Okay, I thought Doom was a weird autist that lived in a trailer. I didn't think he was the kind of guy that...
Now he's a bro.
Now he's a cool... now he's James Dean. Like, is Doom supposed to be, like, robotic? Is he supposed to be sinister? Is he supposed to be rebellious? Is he supposed to be avuncular? He's all 4 of those things. And we don't have enough time to explore any of them in any depth. Look, a person can be all 4 of those things in their lifetime, I suppose, but we don't have enough time to... Instead, he just looks like he's yo-yoing all over the place. And I've got to conclude this film famously had a troubled production and was rewritten as they were shooting it. And I've got to assume that people are just chucking pages at this poor guy, whoever wrote it, Kebbel, and he's just doing the best with what he's got. Actually, I read an interview with him where he said he had a really good time on filming the movie, and he's one of the few defenders.
I think he's the only one who did.
That's correct. He's the only defender of Trank.
Right. Huh.
We could also mention the lack of development of the love triangle, where if it's even there. So we see Victor watching Reed and Sue laughing together, and he calls Reed over. And we think that there's going to be a big confrontation about Sue, but Victor says, you're being unprofessional. You're just goofing around when you should be working. And Reed says, "Oh, we finished."
Hey, Reed, have a word?
Okay, yeah.
Being unprofessional. You're supposed to be down here working.
Yeah, I am. That's what we've been doing.
That's not what it looks like.
We're finished.
What?
Yeah, we finished it. Do you want to see?
Yeah.
And then, Victor completely drops the anger bit and, oh yeah, I want to see what you did. And it never comes up again until the final climax of the movie. When they're in Earth Zero.
Yeah, I was baffled by it was unnecessary. He's not motivated by jealousy in his final attack as Doctor Doom. So why did it need to be in there? And also, how many lines are spoken by women in this movie? How many women are in this movie? It's basically Sue and a few technical operators, and basically she's lusted after by 2-3 different characters.
We don't even have any babes running around like we did at the party in the second Fantastic Four movie.
No.
There's just where are the women in this world? There's
sexy military attaches hitting on Johnny Storm.
Yeah.
Franklin Ray or whatever, and Frankie
Ray, yeah.
That's it.
I mean, there are some other women working in the lab, but they never speak.
Barely, yeah.
They just kind of walking around.
Often you'll see 5 guys in a row working the computers, and there's no women among them.
Yeah.
It happens again and again in this movie. Yeah.
This is the opposite of Y the Last Man.
Yes.
S the Last Woman.
Yeah.
By the way, I wanted to the thing where they're drinking and then they say, okay, well let's jump dimensions. I was saying friends don't let friends dimension hop drunk.
Teleport drunk. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is rather like The Fly as well, isn't it? Because of course, Seth Brundle gets drunk before teleporting through the pods. So these drunk idiots call up Ben Grimm, Well, Reed specifically calls him up, and he somehow gets into the Baxter building in time for them not to sober up. I thought he lived out in the suburbs or something.
He lives 40 minutes away by train.
Okay.
That's said out loud.
I guess they keep drinking.
Oh, yeah. Well, Reed comes down to the front door, I think, and No, maybe he doesn't.
Waves him through security.
He does.
Yeah, no, he does. He does.
Yeah, he tells the guard it's okay, he's with me.
Yeah. So they get in spacesuits, much like the monkey had on. But by the way, I guess they need these suits because there's no atmosphere, but later they're not wearing the suits in the movie when they go back.
God, you're right. I think you're
But maybe because they have powers, they don't need suits later on?
I completely missed that.
Yeah, me too.
I assume they're just being cautious. If you're going to a strange dimension, you wear an environment.
Yes, okay. Okay, I'll buy that.
Maybe there is an oxygen atmosphere.
Maybe from their first try. Well, of course, when those other guys go back later, when they bring Doom back, they're wearing the spacesuits again.
Yeah.
But you don't wear spacesuits over your Fantastic Four costumes, I guess.
You're right. I missed that.
I guess.
They all catch a terrible bug.
So, by the way, they arrive in this other dimension. They plant a U.S. flag. I don't know how Victor feels about this because he's from Latveria.
Yeah.
He doesn't have any objection to them planting a U.S. flag in another dimension. And they're not documenting any of it except that Johnny takes a picture for Instagram.
Yep.
What kind of scientists are these guys?
They're bad. They are really bad scientists.
Yep.
They're really drunk scientists. In the original script, when they arrived in the negative zone, Planet Zero, whatever it's called, Reed is supposed to look down and see the toy car he sent way back in the earlier scene.
You would think that would happen, yeah.
Why would they take that out?
Yeah.
That would have been a really great call.
That would have been a good touch. Yeah, for sure.
Strange.
Fantastic 451, This Man, This Monster, can be found in Volume 6 of Marvel Masterworks Fantastic Four. We also discussed Ultimate Fantastic Four Volume 1, The Fantastic. Follow us on Blue Sky at Decon Comics. On Facebook, we have both a page and a group. Those are linked from deconstructingcomics.com, as is our YouTube channel, where our episodes are posted every week as videos of a single image. You can comment on our episodes on YouTube or on our site, or drop us a line at mail@deconstructingcomics.com, or talk to us. Click the Leave a Voicemail link on the left sidebar of our site. Are you making a comic? Send it to us and we'll do a Critiquing Comics episode about it. Our theme is by J.B. Anderton. The music backing the promotion of our Patreon is Change by Jazar. Next week, part 2 of our discussion of Josh Trank's oddly dark Fantastic Four movie and some of the problems that went on behind the scenes, from rewrites demanded by Fox to discord between director and actors, and that awful wig. Till then, this is Tim, and thanks for listening to Deconstructing Comics.